What's going on here, everybody? Welcome back to the stream. It's Wednesday, November 16th, and I'm coming to you live. So, for those that are tuning in live, thank you for the support. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to leave comments whether you like my content or you don't. Um, I appreciate all the input. I actually read every single message and I try to respond to the community. So, I thought I'd do an update and just give you a sense of everything that's transpired. I think everybody's in the know, obviously, with FTX and sort of the fallout with that. And um, I think a lot of the ripples in the community, not necessarily the EOS community, but just the crypto space in its entirety. We're still seeing the fallout from that. So I think people in some respects may get hurt. The latest, if for those that don't know, is apparently Genesis may be having some issues. Again, none of this is confirmed. This is all alleged. But there are some concerns now of maybe the ties to GBTC. And I know many of you guys are aware. Obviously, your boy, has exposure there. So not a lot of exposure, but that'd be my first hit with this whole FTX fiasco. And Twitter is on fire in terms of all the news coming out from that. So I'd be curious to know, has it affected you guys? Are you seeing the fallout from it? Again, most of the assets, if you follow this channel or others like it, OGs in the space, if you've done your own storage, most of this you're just sitting back and watching it like with popcorn. So um, that's kind of the case for me. I do think it's interesting that the team was able to parlay essentially billions of dollars. And just hearing the stories come out now with how they were utilizing client funds, even some notion of like an Excel sheet being used for some transactions. It's just really surprising that level of the lack of due diligence that had been done on this firm, and it just leads me to believe that whenever we get in a situation where we overhype certain maybe even personalities within a community or personalities within a project, that godlike icon, that's when we have to be careful, right? Because it could also mean the downfall for everything. And I think some of the lessons learned, although FTX is a centralized entity, you know, the oversight, right, in terms of funds and transfer of funds. And so, when I made some comments earlier this week, actually, about this matter, that's really where I was coming from as it relates to EOS and the management of a large amount of funds that essentially are going to be created and distributed to fund ventures. I just think that especially with the market as it is today, we run a huge risk. And there's also not just the people, because maybe we trust the people, or maybe some people who watch this trust the people. They say I'm a futter, but there's also just the optics, right? So there needs to be these things in place to provide that level of trust and resiliency. And I'm not sure what the insurance process or what kind of backstop there could be for a scenario where maybe that process fails, the original process of distributing money or transferring money. But I think that's something that all communities, whether they're centralized or decentralized outside of Bitcoin, will ultimately need to discuss. And it's not something we've heard about as of late. So let me know your thoughts on that. I'm, again, just like everybody else, just parsing and digesting this information as it comes in. Some of the other things that happened for me this week, I did have a project. I think I mentioned you guys. It was called DB Spy, and it's an open source database visualizer that abstracts away the technical complications of essentially architecting a database, building out the structure. Well, turns out now that project is basically being added to an incubator, a tech incubator. It's called Oslabs. So looks like there's some iteration and some support for um, additional resources to be deployed for that project and improvements to it. And so that's nice to see. I think it's one of 22 projects. There's like hundreds of projects within that particular boot camp or group of engineers that work on things. And so that was pretty cool to see that one of the things I actually built is still being worked on and growing. So if you're into GitHub or you're into certain projects, check out DB Spy, like DB like database, Spy like a glass. Um, and let me know what you think about that application. Do you use Postgres databases? You might enjoy um, that solution that we built. So that was pretty fun. In terms of some other news that's come out here, obviously, you guys know that I participate in the Ideathon. I actually submitted 3 different ideas. And it was funny because the last idea I submitted, which was the project, in my opinion, I should have spent a little bit more time on to iterate on and really focus and hone in on the pitch, was the one that was selected by the judges. And I had an opportunity earlier this week to pitch that idea to not only the judges, but the community live. And I was able to win that event. So I just want to say, it's not necessarily about the winning. I want to say first, a shout out to everybody who participated in the event with me. And also a shout out to all the organizers because, EOS does not have a lot of resources in terms of people power and in my opinion, people doing things that will help to actually grow the community and create solutions and products that are going to be built on EOS. And so having the Ideathon and the Trust EVM um, type of competitions brings these people in. I mean, there were I think there was like something like 500 participants in this event. When you think about the numbers within EOS on a percentage basis, if you look at even the numbers for like the EOS main channel, 500 people is pretty significant. And I did go through the projects, believe it or not, and there were a lot that many people who really didn't even know about EOS, until this time. And so you're getting now an influx of talent that's coming in. You're getting an influx of ideas, and the hope, or at least my hope, is that over time, maybe with enough talent, enough technical acumen as well, we're able to build some of these out, right? And actually produce value not only for like ourselves who are building this project, but also provide opportunities for people who maybe see EOS as an operating system, right? Where you have these various products and applications that are getting built. And so my whole goal is not just to like work on like something like an ideathon. My ultimate goal is to build out like some kind of a minimum viable product. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. Doesn't mean that everything's going to be on EOS, but I think there's opportunities there, to showcase certain aspects of the technology. And so that's kind of my goal at this point in terms of what I'm working on. I have started a very simple UI for the idea. For those that don't know, the idea was it's called Real Lot. Real Lot is basically a project that I thought would be interesting to actually build on EOS or use aspects of EOS for, that really leverages EOS's permission system. So EOS has this fabulous permission system that allows basically a stack of, say, various accounts, right, to perhaps like inherent or have certain voting weights, certain rights, right, with other assets. And so if you're to leverage that and say, instead of maybe using the token like EOS or digital art NFT, but use that more in the context of like a coupon to have access to a facility, you can really maybe reinvent, right, the market for accessing different housing or different vacation spots or different facilities, maybe even gyms, events, right? And the way I characterize it is, most of the platforms out there today, like Airbnb, they're done within a very rigid time frame. Airbnb, which I love, I travel all around the globe, or yeah, and I travel all around the US. And usually when I go, with some minor exceptions, like the latest, I think even like some of the EOS events, I wasn't able to use as much the Airbnb because everything was booked. So I actually ended up staying in some hotels. But most of those are rigid in nature, meaning you have to commit to like say a day. And I think where in some cases the world's going is not only embracing like, hey, I want to lounge for a day at a particular place, but I want to just actually have an experience for a day. So and that could just be like a few hours, or it could be half a day, or maybe you're an entrepreneur that's getting your event, with very little startup money off the ground, and you need access to a facility. How do you get access to a facility today? It's really hard, and oftentimes, again, the committal rates are very difficult to get for a short duration. So if you only had like a 3-hour event, or if you were looking to target a specific market, maybe you're looking to do a night event if it's permitted, obviously. Uh, my whole idea is to use Realot to help to facilitate those types of exchanges, those types of interactions, and moreover also leverage the EOS system to allow for the transferability of maybe unused time. So maybe you arbitrage and you go and you buy access to a facility for a couple hours, 6 hours. Maybe you don't need all that time, but maybe that's the minimum the owner wants. Maybe you can work with other people as permitted by the owner to basically limit, right, your costs of exposing exposure for 6 hours. Maybe use half of that. It's really interesting. There's a lot of other things I'd like to see in it. And right now, my strategy for those that don't know is, and thank you, Meta Rick. I appreciate that. Yeah, it is kind of nice to at least get a little bit of that milestone, or accomplishment, and definitely the OS Labs is also an accomplishment. But right now, what I'm doing is I'm leveraging a lot of the skills I learned in boot camp, coding boot camp, which I spent like 4 months. It's pretty intense. It's about 12-hour days to build the DB Spy was about 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks of 12-hour days to build that and to get it launched and to pitch it. But now what I want to do, time permitting, is kind of take that same mentality and work through at least a React application that's going to accomplish what I've just described to you today. So it doesn't really require any funding or anything because it's just sweat equity, right? It's just showing up every day, tackling issues on React, just little technical issues with components. These are all things that I'm pretty familiar with in building DB Spy. So the difference right now, for those that are curious, is building it on React Native. And React Native is something that, most applications on your desktop, like on your computers, they utilize React for responsive application, like full stack applications. And those are great for desktop environments. But I think where we want to go ultimately is mobile, right? We want to do mobile first deployments for applications. And the reason behind that is because the world is mobile. I mean, and to somehow do transactions, sometimes it's really useful to have an awareness of location, right? Where something's located, maybe where an asset's located, maybe where real estate's located. Maybe you want embedded GPS into your suite, your solution, right? To enable your customers to actually get there. Maybe you want to use the mobile application to not only navigate to a location, but to interact with it. And so when we think about like maybe renting facilities, a big part of that is going to be um, taking advantage of like the mobile phone to be used as a key with EOS technology, right? And so I started to look at like API stacks for smart doors and smart locks. We may not need that for a first iteration, but I think it's really cool to maybe explore those possibilities. But right now, what I focus on mostly is just like a UI, just getting a stupid UI up and running. Um, so I've been working like on my UI. I have like a listing. You can kind of flip through pictures, like a description, like a description area. I'm working on a profile and then building out like a calendar component, right? That dynamically makes calls to my backend to determine availability for different time periods or different days. And so I haven't really quite figured out what the most intuitive way to do that is from a UI, from a user experience perspective. User experience is not something that I was particularly like, it's not necessarily my forte. Even with the DB Spy program or the application I built, I was mostly on the algorithms to do like the parsing and the autonomous, code generation and the stuff that is crunching on the back end. Some stuff on the front end. I use like MUI components for those that are not familiar with that. For this particular one, so far I've been sort of stumbling through the difficulty of getting a calendar component that is going to do what I want it to do. Because it is a little challenging for this particular project. I think for a like a Airbnb clone on EOS, it might be a little easier because for the most part, your duration is the same, right? So you're always renting out um, a property for the duration specified. In my case, it's a little bit more flexible. So how you articulate those constraints to a multitude of users, across different application uses. So you could have like a day use, you could have, hourly uses, you could have these different things. That's really what I'm trying to explore. I think that uh, a lot of negligence is actually whether implicitly or whether on purpose. I think we still fail within the blockchain space to make applications that are actually very intuitive and nice to use in a sense that they're on par with maybe the experience you get with an Airbnb or get with maybe an application that Google built. So, one of my thoughts is to really explore, um, you know, how that would look as maybe just a React Native application. And then maybe taking a step back and trying to figure out, okay, what aspects of this, given the stage that EOS is in, what aspects of this could I, start to integrate EOS contracts and permissions and all the things that we know EOS is capable of doing. Right now, for me personally, I'll be honest with you, it's a little bit, still a little bit difficult, and I'm still hoping that the Trust CVM, this Ethereum virtual machine, maybe with my background with JavaScript, I'd be able to pick that up real quick and spin up the contracts that are necessary. So we'll have to see. I haven't seen a lot of updates from that team. So if you're aware of that, let me know. But then anyway, I just thought I'd share, what things I'm working on. I like to do it because I'm an engineer at heart. I love to build things. I love to figure out how things work. And so that's what I've been spending some time on. Again, just trying to acclimate to React Native environment, which is a little different than just building on React. Also, something that I learned is that React Native is not necessarily agnostic to OS systems. Like, you have these cases where it's like this will work for Android, but it won't work for iOS. And so, my whole thought or my whole hope is to build an application that is agnostic for both iOS and Android. So, I'm coming up with the necessary frameworks, the necessary testing environments to trial those. So this particular one, for those that are interested, is called it's Expo, and so that's you can get that on your phone, and you could actually build like applications and launch them and kind of interact with them in some ways, just through your local network. So it's kind of nice to see those kind of things. I'm also trying to get Xcode up on my computer. I recently got the new Apple with the Apple chip, and I don't know if that's I know like with my fellow engineers when we were building DB Spy, I know that my colleagues had problems with the new Apple M1 chip and software and so I'm having issues actually with like just a simple getting Xcode up so that I can have an emulator. An emulator is just something that simulates how like something would look on a iOS mobile, right? Because we want it to be both. So those are the kind of things I'm tackling right now, but I'm focused mostly on Android. It's fine. Having fun with that. But yeah, something I didn't realize is that they kind of tout React Native as this solution that works for everything. And it's like you end up having to maybe do some conditional statements depending on the operating system that the user has, then you may need to, add some additional logic for the functionality to work properly. So that's been fun. Some other things I'm keeping track of here is Eden. Eden, and I talked with some people about Eden. I know people are going to say I'm a futter with Eden and EOS, but I think at this point, it's we've had this trial period. It's kind of run its course, in my opinion, about what Eden's been able to do, over that time period. If you look at the amount of capital that's been committed and the output and the results, some of it, I guess, subjectively could be said it has tremendous value. And but I guess what I get back to is, how does it benefit the actual non-Eden members? What services can I point to or leverage? Maybe even as a developer. And so I think, like, what I'm looking to Meta Rick asked if I use Docker. Docker I've used for some applications. For right now, I don't really see the need to leverage Docker. But I think if I had, like, one reason of why I would want to leverage Docker is if I had more people on my team, so I can make maybe the dependency process agnostic for everybody. I would definitely use Docker for that. Or if I was looking at scaling solutions on like AWS, I might, blend Docker in to interact with the cloud. I haven't really focused a lot on that. Right now, I'm just focused on getting the components built, getting the functionality, maybe even having, like, in place of EOS, maybe the database, right? Just to show how this actually works. And it's like the next level, because when you think about, like, ideation, part of it is, you make that initial pitch, you see about the general commercial viability of your idea. And maybe the next step is you have some Pictionary or goofy thing that shows people actually, like, hey, if this app was built, this is how it would be built. And maybe the next step is, I have something that's fully interactive. If you go to this link and you interact it with your phone, boom, you get something that gives you the look and feel of this app. And it kind of gives a sense of, like, okay, this is actually something that could work. Um, Here's the concept, here's the dynamic market, it offers users that isn't out there today. And so that's kind of my goal um, in doing it this way. But it's not to say that you couldn't use Docker and leverage it that way. I mean, that's fully possible, fully capable, of doing so. But again, with Eden, like I was saying, it's going into the services that could be leveraged by developers, I think, and users. And I think that Eden should go back to that. And I'm happy to be a part of that. If that's something that Eden wants to do. I've felt in my heart, in my mind, that Eden to date hasn't had a focus. And so it's been very challenging to channel the community's energy into something that's actually going to be productive. And one of those things that it doesn't matter what application we're going to build, guys. If you're going to build an application or you're going to see these ideas spin up, I mean, ult- outside of, like, very simple things, like maybe you're designing a digital art NFT exchange thing, and good for you if you want to do that. But complex, sophisticated applications, you're transacting value for, like, say, a real world service, right? Someone's going to make an assertion on my application that they have this fabulous Malibu lounge area, and maybe I decide to pay $100 for a couple hours just to chill, maybe with my friends, right, or my girlfriend or my family. Maybe it turns out that it's not up to snuff, right? That happens. I mean, it happens with Airbnb. And so the question is going to be, when those kinds of things happen, what is the process to resolve them? And it's not specific to Real Lot. It's not specific to, like, the application I'm building. This is across the spectrum. When you look at anything that's going to be built on EOS, or in my opinion, any real application, right, on blockchain outside of cute JPEGs. Let's get away from that stuff. We're building, like, maybe utility. There's disputes that are going to happen. So we need to have a process in place that allows for the facilitation of resolving those issues when they do come up. And I think this is a great pivot opportunity for Eden to really explore, look within themselves, especially a lot of the leaders there, Jesse Jaffe and some of these people that are high on Eden and Fractal. I think honing in on your energy and focusing on what community and builders need, I think that's a sweet spot for you, over this next year. And I would even go as far to say, because I know a lot of people say, well, Phoenix, I don't have the coding ability. I can't code. So expecting me to build a dispute resolution system for Eden is miles afar from what I can offer. And so my response would be is that we have a group of intelligent people within the community, and a big part of like coding, a big part of like building an application, one thing I learned, I mean, I'm obviously not a developer. I'm an engineer, that's my classical training. But in any product I built or the little code I've done, one thing that actually is super critical, you can ask actually any developer or any development team, is the mapping process for how the app is actually supposed to work. Before you code anything, how is actually this supposed to work, especially with something as complex as dispute resolution? And so I think like an opportunity exists for Eden members to um, consider like developing this map out process, form a working group, channel your energy into the dispute resolution process that any developer can use within EOS. Obviously, like you mapping that out won't form the solution that like developers use, but ENF or another group within EOS could potentially take that and then pitch that or send that to an RFP, right? A request for proposal to build this out as a plugin module that developers like myself or people who are interested in building on EOS can plug into their applications. And that's where you get the value. And so I'd really like to see that type of pivot. I think right now is the perfect time for that. And I'm kind of curious to hear the community's thoughts. Do you support that thought process? I'm kind of thinking about like certain functions, certain processes, certain parameters that generally we would map out, as well as considerations for deployment on a global scale. Because a lot of people who are on YouTube who talk about EOS that are left, like myself, we're Western centric. That's an admission. That's the truth. I don't like that Western centrism, but I live, I lived in California, right? I lived on the West Coast my whole life. I've traveled as an engineer. I've had an opportunity, mostly in the power domain, right? Doing testing and deployments and certain projects. But um, we can't ignore the needs or requirements of global customers. And so I think Eden is perfect for that, with the various Eden communities to come around and also capture those parameters and make a really unique product. And I think that is the flagship product for EOS. It's not Eden, it's the dispute resolution um, that leverages Eden members, because that is something that can be consumed by apps that we're going to build on EOS. I can't consume Eden. Eden doesn't do anything for my app. I'm sorry, it doesn't. I think some people could say, well, Phoenix, one thing it could potentially do is it could tell you who's real. And that's true. There's some other ways on doing that, maybe even outside of Eden. So I'm not going to say that an app would have to fully or solely focus or depend on Eden for that process. But I think something like a very sophisticated dispute resolution system as an SDK could be something that I use. Like I could use that right now because I know that disputes are going to happen. It doesn't matter what application it is. Even ride sharing, disputes are going to happen. So rather than like each app developer coming up with their own dispute resolution process, why don't we leverage the community to enable that service that we could pay for within our applications? It would actually translate value back to Eden if you were to start that process. the process is not going to be easy. So I would suggest, let's start that now. Let's form a working group and let's actually map that out as intelligent men and women of the community. Let's not waste time on shilling on Twitter because no one cares about that stuff. That doesn't add any value. Okay. So that's my soapbox for Eden. I'll probably sound like a broken record over time, but we'll see if we get any support on that pitch. Um, so what are some other things on the radar? I did want to mention also with Eden, and I'm not sure if this would fall within Eden, but one other thing I thought about is that with these apps, a lot of people focus on the fact that like EOS contracts are immutable in a sense that they're immutable up to a point that they could be changed, right, by whoever has the keys to that contract. And so another key area here, and I know Eves is mentioning, like this DeFi group that you maybe give your keys to the block producers, or there's some way to manage that, mitigate the chances of someone just changing something real fast. I think at some point, like with more apps getting built on EOS, there needs to be some type of a committee, a voting committee, or some kind of oversight that would look after changes made to an app once it's on some kind of a walled garden store, right? If you have a store of some kind, last thing you want to do is have significant changes that could compromise somebody's funds. And that not only touches on the changes made to the EOS contract, but it also touches on anything done to the front end, that could change maybe the experience seen by those users. And I think that's something that hasn't been talked about. And for a while, like when I listened to Dan's latest video on the Sybase or whatever it is, I kind of rolled my eyes because I was annoyed by the fact that he's building another project. But I did recognize like sort of what he was saying in a sense of the risk with a DApp that's built, say, with React Native or some other code or platform. And even if the contract itself doesn't change, maybe the front end changes and doesn't provide the experience or the response that users had originally envisioned or thought through. And so that's something that I don't see anybody within the leadership of EOS talking about. I think more effort could be made to merge the holistic development of an application. A lot of focus right now is on contracts, contract development or contract performance. I know they have these working groups with Leap and a lot of that is great, but at the end of the day, you need people that are going to build applications, build hundreds of applications on EOS using like commercial frameworks, like React Native. You're not going to reinvent that process. So if we assume that React and React Native are going to be used and we're embedding like interactions with these contracts, what is that oversight? What are the best practices? I'm still looking for Nathan James, that program to be rolled out. I think we need to like start rolling that out now because people have been waiting for like years. And I know he just got onboarded, but maybe there's an iterative approach that can be used so that developers can be part of a beta program and feedback is given as the program is being developed so that you iterate and you improve upon something. You don't build out a whole program and release it to the community when there could be things that are just left out. So, those are my thoughts today. I'd love to, hear your thoughts. Metarick mentions contract auditors. I think that's a part of it. But again, you also have not only the contract, but you have the front end code as well. And the two are kind of separate, believe it or not, because you kind of build your C++ or EOS or maybe use EBM. You build your contract and you basically upload that to the blockchain, right? And then you have like APIs like EOS.js I can use to access with RPC like some action on the network, right? Off of that contract. So I can actually basically take an action off of that contract and then render the results on my application. But there's nothing there, like there's no oversight also on the front end. So like you almost need like an app store or some kind of way that yeah, like basically looks out for the users and has some kind of insurance, right, on that. That if something were to happen, this is how we protect you, kind of a thing. That's just my thoughts. You guys might think I'm crazy. I know people are gonna say I'm a futter. I'd love to hear your comments. Put them in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts and be specific with them. I'd love to hear specific feedback and comments. That's going to help me become a better community member within EOS. It's going to help me become maybe a better developer or innovator within EOS. That's what I'm trying to do every day. I'm trying to get better every day. So anyway, that's my rant for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to tune into the Discord EOS chat for the week if it's up. But thanks. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Special thanks to MetaRick for all your comments. And I look forward to doing this again, hopefully next week. I've also thought about like stand-ups. I mentioned this to some other people in the community. I don't know how many people actually develop, okay? What I'd like to do is actually get like morning, midday, and evening stand-ups. And what stand-ups are is they're basically a way for us as a community to get together 3 times a day and just make an assertion as to what things we are working on. It's not about fractally, it's not about tokens. It's just like these are the kinds of things I need to get done on my application or for my initiative. And the reason why I found it very effective in the project I had built before, like trying to build this thing I'm building now, is because it keeps people accountable. Because you're meeting with people like 2, 3 times a day, you kind of have that accountability partner. And if you have like accountability partners that are subject matter experts within your domain, so like I'll give an example. Like I'm trying to develop on EOS. I'm not saying I know everything about EOS. I definitely don't. I'm an idiot especially when it comes to smart contracts on EOS and even React. Like sometimes I struggle with it, to be honest with you. But like in that project I did, what we were able to do is we were able to split ourselves up. There was only 4 of us building that, so we were able to split ourselves up and we were able to make assertions in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening about things we were going to work on specifically in an agile format. So I'm going to work on this calendar component, getting XYZ functionality. And my goal is to have this complete by noon. And so we would do that. And so by noon, we come back, we'd reconvene and see where we were at in that process within that assertion that was made previously. And if we were falling behind or we had difficulty, another member would step in and maybe help that person to resolve the issues. And most of the time, believe it or not, we could resolve them with just another member. So like one member would have trouble with his or her code. Another guy would step in and say, hey, let's think about this other way to do it. And we were able to kind of piggyback on each other to help each other resolve this quickly, right? Because we only had a couple weeks to launch this thing. And so like I'm wondering if like people have used that within EOS, or even how many developers we have in EOS who could help like spin up a project. Doesn't matter what skill set domain you have, anything you can do, even if it's mapping out processes, would be helpful. But it could also be used in other processes as well. What I use is actually a combination of those types of things with myself, like the stand-ups. And I also use like I've been hoping to use, or I've been looking forward to use like live share. I don't know if it's called live share. I think it might be called live share on like Visual Studio, where you can partner with people. So you have one, like everybody installs Visual Studio, and then we have a collaborative work space, right? Where we may have like 5 developers, different levels, doesn't matter. And everybody's able to follow along or collaborate on that full stack application. And so that's how we were doing it, which was pretty cool. We use GitHub as well, but that's a dynamic way, and that way if people have trouble, we're able to come in and help them, vice versa. I'm kind of curious to hear, what are some tool sets you guys have used. I'm a little bit new to the space, but I appreciate you guys, tuning in and hearing my thoughts. And yeah, I look forward to doing them. Let me know if you're interested in that kind of stuff. It'd be really nice to see if there was like one other person that was trying to build on EOS and your struggles, and yeah, maybe being a part of stand-ups. Or if you're interested in the mapping process, even that'd be kind of cool to see a stand-up process um, targeting maybe dispute resolution and working on different aspects of that in a collaborative manner. So, anyways, I'm going to tune into the show. Thank you for tuning in. Hit the like button, and I'll talk to you all later. Peace.